Oh, are we live?
We're live, Jamie.
It's another real-time real talk where we talk about Convex stuff, and you play guitar apparently instead of
No.
engaging with the.
Oh, sorry. Oh, hey, everyone. Let's talk about databases. Hey, welcome to Real-Time Real Talk Live. Um, so this is our regular, periodic kind of stream where we answer any of your questions about Convex. And fortunately, this time, Wayne set it up so we have some questions lined up to get started. So we'll just start going through some questions that have already been submitted, and then feel free to add more questions, and we'll just answer more stuff as it goes. And then, as always, if someone can say hi in the chat, just so we know that there's someone out there. Oh my God, thank you, Solo Dev. Hi to you too. All right, let's look at some questions that have been scheduled. So maybe there's not that many of them, so we'll just go in reverse order maybe. Just because sometimes people tune in late. So any guidance on using Convex use query versus Tanstack use query? When should you use one versus the other one? I can answer that real quick. If you're using Tanstack, which you don't have to do, but we are big fans of Tanstack here, just use Tanstack use query, has some more features. Otherwise, if you're not using Convex, you'll get by just great with Convex and Convex use query. This question is Jamie Turner question. I'm a big fan of Vue, and I know Convex focuses on React right now. Do you have plans or timeframes for other frameworks to reach feature parity? Alternatively, if someone new to open source, would support be available if I wanted to contribute?
Yes, we would love to support Vue and Svelte and things like that more actively than we do. We need a bigger team to do it. So probably the timing on that is going to be sometime in 2026. We'll have enough folks working on our team to be able to start to bring more frameworks up to the same quality level and feature parity as React. I think one of the things that we are exploring though is sponsoring projects, and so like if there's I think folks may have seen we just announced that we just sponsored a lot of open source projects. And one of the ideas that we've been kicking around with some of the engineers on the team here is finding some really well done Vue bindings that have been written by the community and seeing if there are ways we could help sponsor their development so that everyone isn't waiting on Convex having enough engineers to do all this work. So, hopefully more progress on that, in the next 4 or 5 months if we can do it through a sponsorship. But when it comes to fully taking ownership of it, I would guess it's going to be sometime in mid 2026 when the team is big enough to do that.
Yeah. For example, we sponsored Solid, I believe, right, Jamie? I hope I'm getting that right. Yeah.
We did.
And the reason for doing that is mostly that Jamie's a Solid fan. And we think it's a cool project, even though we don't have first-class support for Solid.js, I don't think. But we do have a client library that you wrote, I think, Jamie. Is that right?
Yeah, I've my really old one, and I think it's been updated 3 or 4 times by other people in the community as Solid has evolved to make it better. There's this a little bit of a karmic thing, right? Where it's like I would love for Solid to be so widely adopted that we can't ignore it. And it's not quite there yet. But if there are things we can do to encourage more people to use Solid, because we would obviously love to have to support Solid because so many of you are using it. But
yep. And thanks for everyone putting your questions up on the list. We will get to them, so feel free just to load them up, and we'll scroll through them. There's a question also from I guess it's Jade. My career goal is to join the Convex team one day. Thank you so much. That's a goal for us too, for you to join one day. I'm working on ways to build towards that, but I'd love to know if you could see some mentorship or learning pathways in Convex's future. So I spend a lot of my time on mentorship, but I'm kind of tapped out right now, unfortunately. So what can we do? How can you learn more about Convex? I think we have quite a lot of our stack is open source now. And I think if you read through our materials on our docs, especially stuff about like optimistic concurrency control and the Zen of Convex, like why you should use certain primitives, and look at how things are built in our source, that's probably a pretty good educational experience. Because I like to think the Convex is built by like sensible, experienced people. And I think I wrote a tweet about this the other day, but I think one of the really best ways to develop good taste and experience is to look at someone's work and ask yourself, why was it done that way? And really try to get to the core of were those decisions made. Adam says, if a DB query is cached for the next call, the dev doesn't get charged for database bandwidth. True? Although the next call still counts as a function call. Yes, also. Any plans to incentivize performant architecture by charging half a function call here versus a full one? Jamie?
Yes, absolutely. One of the biggest thing the Convex team is working on behind the scenes right now, because we have grown and we have bigger customers and we're hitting more scale, is Convex is working on its first kind of like team and enterprise plans. So there are going to be, right now we have everyone on the pro plan, and there are folks that are, have a lot of traffic on that plan, and there are folks just starting their project, and it's no longer the right plan for everyone. So when it comes to incentivizing cache hits so that you all can kind of share in the savings when cache hit rates are higher, we'll probably roll that out in the team plan, which is kind of the next plan up, because those economics still really start to matter when you have a lot of traffic. So we will make function calls a lot cheaper. But we will, as a trade-off, we'll have a metered charge for the time spent inside queries and mutations, and that way, if you have a cache hit, that's 0 time in a query and mutation, so it costs nothing, right? So other than the smaller function call charge, and that way also too, it helps keep our incentives aligned with you all and with us. That faster queries and mutations are good for you and good for us. They're easier to scale. They keep your users happier. They cost less money to serve. So we would like it that when you make your mutations faster, you're rewarded by pricing breaks. So those pricing pass-throughs will be available in the higher plans that we're going to offer soon.
I'm just going to jump to the chat. There's a few more questions queued up. I just saw 2 comments stood out to me, so I want to reference them really quick. Hi, Thomas. The comment that maybe we should promote kind of power users to become dev advocates and take bigger roles in Discord, for example. That's been happening, and we have Convex community members working for us as contractors, and they're awesome. And so we absolutely do keep an eye on Discord. We notice who is helpful. And we've even lined up consulting gigs for some folks sometimes to help out some customers. And we really appreciate, I think our Discord community is awesome. And so, 100% think, yeah.
Convex has a champions program that a lot of the folks that really stand out in the community are in the champions program, and eventually those folks do turn into basically Convex employees sometimes, or kind of authorized Convex consultants. And because we're having more bigger companies on board onto Convex, one of the things it feels like is in our future is starting to work with community members to see if they're interested in being kind of maybe being some of the first kind of authorized Convex consultants and stuff like that, to be able to kind of leverage their expertise in order to create their own businesses to help other companies integrate Convex. So, and I think the mentorship there can come from a lot of those folks that are in that champions community, bringing on other people that they see in the community they think are talented and helping educate them up as well. So definitely it's a bigger part of our future. I agree with that, Thomas. Yep.
And I saw another question here I just want to address because I have a spicy answer for it. Is it fair to say that Chef open source is the best example of a production Convex app to review to date and a goldmine of general best practices? Can you guess what my answer is, Jamie?
The answer is no.
Yeah, the answer is no. I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest. The Chef code base was written in a rush. Chef was written in, honestly, 10 days end to end, and we changed plans a few times in those 10 days. Now there's been maintenance, obviously has happened since then, but Chef was slapped together like fast because we wanted to get it out quickly, and it leverages, I think, the Bolt code base very heavily, the Bolt DIY code base very heavily, and I think there's a better way of building a code gen tool that some of our so we have other code gen tools. I'll just point out, say, Bloom and Vly as 2, who are built on Convex, and they leverage Convex very heavily. They leverage our actions and all that kind of stuff, and like they use Convex as kind of the execution engine. Whereas Chef still reuses a lot of the code that was in Bolt, and like runs in web containers, for example. So as a result, I unfortunately don't think it's the best code base. I mean, it's fine, but I don't think it's the best example of a production Convex app. I'll be honest about that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the very best production Convex apps are owned by our customers, and so we work closely enough with a lot of our customers with bigger code bases that those teams that have a real mastery of Convex, a lot of them have excellent, beautifully crafted code bases. So Chef definitely, as James said, represents let's see how quickly we could get this out. So we didn't necessarily take the time to structure that to be a model for how everyone else should use Convex, unfortunately.
So I'm just going to switch back to the pre-registered questions to get through them really quick. L says, I would love to have examples of how much it would cost to run a production level app with a level of traffic. For example, Railway used to have examples of how much certain things would cost. Discord bot was $5 a month, etc. That'd be nice for Convex.
Yeah, we do have a pricing calculator on the homepage. Pricing calculators are always limited. That I fully understand. I think that if you can always reach out to us if you have something you're going to migrate over, and we can help create a kind of crafted estimate for you. But in general, companies find that they save money when they move to Convex, and that's not even accounting for like developer productivity. I mean, they literally just bill to bill save money against the previous Postgres containers thing they were using. So a good example, it depends on what they're coming from, but I can certainly say Firebase switching is starting to be a real thing that is happening to Convex. And for example, Firebase teams are often finding they're saving 3 to 5x on their bill. Like, it's pretty substantial. I think if you're on a Postgres project, the savings won't be as dramatic, but they will still be, 50% cheaper, something like that. So it's as usual. It depends. So like, it's always worth talking through what's your architecture, right? How friendly is it, to example, for like Convex's automatic caching and stuff like that. But most customers find they're spending less money on Convex than they were on their pre-existing stack. And one of the reasons is Convex kind of steers you toward relatively optimal architectures, and so like you often end up with something that runs a bit more efficiently than what you had before.
The other thing is, I mean, maybe it's no consolation, but it's kind of hilarious how little some companies pay on Convex as a fraction of their expense. Like, there's companies out there spending like this much on models and tokens and this much on Convex. So for these companies, Convex is very cheap. Obviously, not everyone has an app like that. The last one on the pre-registered questions was, what's the timeline for EU hosting? Will it be released soon as promised? Okay, so can I give an answer, Jamie?
Go ahead.
First, I want to like just confess to how businesses work, right? We have like so many priorities and limited time to do it, right? And so sometimes we do things because it's the right thing to do, and sometimes we do things because there's a lot of money to be made from it. Because money is good for the company too. And I will say there is increasingly a lot of money showing up wanting EU storage, right? There's a lot of companies showing up saying, hey, we will pay you big amount of money if we can have EU residency. And there's no surer way to get a company to do something than that. So we need to do it. We have our currently like an eng plan. Like I do this periodic eng plans every quarter. And the plan is to start working on it this quarter. And so that I don't currently have a plan for shipping it, but maybe someone should ask a question about databases in MySQL and PlanetScale. I won't say that just yet, but that's a lot of our attention on our infrastructure side has gone towards us doing another database rewrite, kind of data, and so that slowed down EU, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, short version is it's pretty close to our top priority as soon as we have any headroom on the infra side, if not our top priority. But the table stakes of like our databases have to run reliably and efficiently. Unfortunately, like that has been a focus as we've scaled in the last few months. And so until that is ironclad, it's difficult for the team to focus on anything else. Yep. I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel on that project. And then after that, we'll switch on to getting European hosting out as quickly as we can.
Maybe I can leak some information about that now, because it might be interesting to you. How diplomatically do I say it? We at Convex are massive fans of PlanetScale. We're not necessarily massive fans of Postgres. And I know that is sacrilege to so many of y'all, but Jamie and I have run databases at very large scale before. And I think if you look at MySQL and Postgres as to compare with each other, I would say like the databases have like the top half and the bottom half. The top half is the types and the query planner and all the nice management stuff. And the bottom half is the storage engine, how data is actually laid out on disk and how it's managed. I still do think that MySQL has a better storage engine.
Much better.
Right? I think I think the top half of Postgres is better and the bottom half of MySQL is better. And it turns out for us at Convex, because we don't really use the database as a database, we use the database as a durable write-ahead log, basically. Our queries are very simple. We actually don't even want a query planner. We wish it wasn't there, right? And we depend very heavily on an efficient storage engine. I know there's Oriel DB and stuff going on to try to improve Postgres storage engine. I don't know how. All these things, I know it's an active project, and know Firebase open source that, but doesn't mean it's like ready for production use. I highly doubt that it is right now. So, but I don't know anything about that. We've been running into problems with Postgres' storage engine. In particular, MySQL has a redo log and a different structure for how data, without going into too much depth, MySQL is better for update and delete heavy workloads than Postgres. And the way Convex uses the database, we have a lot of in-place deletes and updates. And Postgres is actually very bad at reclaiming that space. And what we've been finding is that we're running into what's called index bloat. So if you imagine you have a whole bunch of data laid out in a table and you're deleting a bunch of rows in that table, Postgres is not reclaiming that space. So you've got you end up with quite a sparse index. So there's the rows that actually matter and a whole bunch of junk in between them. And so we're finding that the databases are spending a lot of their CPU just walking over these tombstones. So we're playing this game where we're kind of racing compaction to try to reclaim this space and also dealing with this high CPU overhead of walking over these rows. Long story short it's been a bad experience. And so as of right now, we're experimenting with moving our database again to PlanetScale still, to the MySQL product, to Vitesse. We won't use Vitesse, like we don't use any of the sharding or anything. But basically, I mean, PlanetScale has a very, very mature, very fast battle-tested MySQL offering in Vitesse. And so, yeah, that's been a distraction for us. And that has taken up a lot of infra time that could have been spent on other things.
Yep. Postgres has a great type system, and that's it. That's about it.
That's the end of the story.
MVCC, transaction management, connection management, the storage engine, replication infrastructure. MySQL is just a better database. So I know that's not a very popular sentiment, but there it is. Convex kind of crushed Postgres when we tried to switch to it, and so we're having to resolve that now.
And I understand why the internet's so fond of Postgres, because the stuff you use at the start for small scale is kind of better, right? But then when you get to big scale, real serious scale workloads, I think MySQL still king. And so we're having to move. It's just been untenable.
I do want to reiterate one more time, though, that PlanetScale is an incredible team. If you have the misfortune of having to run Postgres, use PlanetScale Postgres. And we are still extremely excited to be PlanetScale customers, but Postgres did not end up working out that well for Convex. I mean, that's the long and short of it.
Yep. But yeah, Planet Scale, awesome folks. And if you have your regular app and you need a JSON data type and blah blah blah, use Postgres. It's fine. Cool. Do you have a separate database for each project? I thought Planet Scale is scalable, but more expensive on initial setup. How does that work with creating free projects on Convex? So unlike some of our competitors, we don't actually have like a full-on physical database per project, right? And that would get very expensive very fast. In particular, in this current age where honestly, a lot of projects are junk, because a lot of people are doing some vibe coding thing and then they abandon it, right? So no, we have this auto scaling architecture where we can kind of scale down our usage per project. Now, currently, we do have a logical database per project. So they have different names in MySQL and Postgres, but like a schema or a logical database. But we do not have a separate physical machine per project. It's all kind of, we handle our own kind of sharding and scaling. Cool. Andy says we shouldn't really care what database is under the hood. Just how yep, you shouldn't care. So I have to care because that's where we spend our time, right? But
I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, we default to just being transparent about what's going on with us. But the thing I am proud of is, despite how much our team has struggled with this, like most of our developers haven't been affected, or they haven't really noticed. And so I do think the Planet Scale team is excellent. Our team is excellent. And like, I'm proud of, despite how poor a fit this ended up being, that most of our developers weren't significantly impacted by this. So the only impact we've all had is that our roadmap is a little delayed because we've been focusing on this instead of shipping new cool stuff for you all. So
yeah. Jake says we should put out a post with benchmarks. Yeah, we will put a post out with in conjunction with Planet Scale. But whenever that happens, we obviously need to do. By the way, you're just seeing our dirty laundry right now. Like, you're seeing an unshipped, unfinished, untested migration we're in the process of. So maybe we'll find there's an issue with that too. But that's just how companies are. So who knows? There was a comment here about will Theo make another video about this?
I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, Theo doesn't know about this yet. Theo is currently still running on Postgres on Planet Scale. Cool. All right, maybe we should go. As Mike, I heard if you use Postgres, you lose hair. I mean, it was happening, but yeah. It's getting thinner every day. Cool. Let's go to the very top of the questions again. When will Convex query support suspense and React? I didn't know.
I didn't know we didn't support it. So maybe I don't know if Tom Ballinger or anybody like that is on the stream right now in the comments.
Tom's probably watching this stream, shaking his head at us.
If somebody on our team that understands React super deeply could weigh in on that, I'd appreciate it. But yeah,
we're by the way we're in the process of designing a kind of cool suspense-like primitive for the backend. So where you can kind of have a query that runs in a loop and keeps consuming data, and then if there's no more data to consume, you can just call suspend or retry or whatever, and the query will sleep until there's more data to process, and that will really help speed up some of our components. Probably most developers won't need this, but this will be really good for components like the work pool and the action retryer and this kind of stuff.
Yep.
Why not sponsor Valibot? I actually not familiar with Valibot.
I don't know it. I mean, a lot of the projects that we ended up sponsoring were nominations from our team, our engineering team, where projects that they care about, or they think someone's doing something really cool, or they think it might help Convex developers, they nominated it. So yeah, I'm not sure. The answer is, I'm sure there's lots of extremely worthwhile projects out there that we just don't know about. So that's the answer.
Yep. Want to create a Stripe component? Yeah. Do we not have a Stripe component, Jamie? Or
we don't. So Sean, who is one of those champions, it's like a de facto team member now and works with us a lot. Wrote the original Polar component, and Sean actually had a very left that project going, oh, I think it'd be a really good idea for a particular kind of Stripe component that he wanted to build, but he's been busy working on better auth, so we haven't really doubled back to revisit that. So we would love, though, because we're working very heavily on component authoring right now, I would love to have, if someone in the community wants to take a shot at a great Stripe component, that'd be amazing. So we definitely pay attention to that and give you guidance and everything. Just find us on Discord and let us know about the project.
Yep. Jordan on our team, who just open source Chef, is now switching on to working full time on component authoring and making it more ergonomic for people to develop their own components. So yes, we would love you to build some cool components. The docs mentioned fuzzy search has been removed. Yeah, that's on me. So fuzzy search was expensive to support, and we found that people weren't really using it much. Because fuzzy search seems good, but in practice, people have a whole lot of more niche requirements on what kind of results they want. So as of right now, it's not a priority to restore. But if it becomes a priority and people nag me enough, that it's possible. Jamie, Tanstack DB, what's our relationship with that?
Actually, we've spent a little bit more time looking into Tanstack DB recently. I think that as part of our incrementally supporting more offline patterns and local first patterns over the next 6 months, Tanstack DB is definitely something we should look at to see if it can be a part of the picture for some users. I think it's a cool project. But our first priority is as we've mentioned before, is Nicola on our team is working on getting client-side ID generation shipped and stuff like that. So there are these ingredients that we need to support better in order to be prepared to roll out more kind of local first solutions. And so that's our focus right now. But I think that once we kind of get that shipped, Tanstack DB might be one of the pieces we look at a little bit more closely to see if it could save us some time. Instead of doing our own work to wrap index DB or whatever, it could be that Tanstack DB just does a good job with the local persistence side of things.
Yep. Will there be a component for offline first?
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff with the next steps will be client-side ID allocation, better optimistic updates, and more to come. And Nicholas will work on that eventually. What about sponsoring the Flutter package? I don't think we have a Flutter.
There's an open source. There's an open source one that I think is there. Yeah, let me just say blanket wise, because we're not gonna say yes no on the stream, because we need to dive into all this. But I definitely, one of the areas we'll look at next to sponsor is, let's look at some frameworks that we haven't had time to get to, and let's look at a number of them and say, hey, if there's a lot of interest in this and there's a developer that's already made the start of an open source project, could we chat with that developer and see if there's a way to sponsor that work so that there's a higher quality library that tracks Convex's progress and stays maintained, and could we help foster that? So we will. And people do ask about Flutter all the time. I think we will. It's one of the ones we'll visit and take a close look at and make a decision about.
Yep. Tell me more about Arc sponsorship, Jamie.
Yeah, I don't know. An engineer wanted to do that, and David Blass is awesome and has helped us recently with optimizing some of our own stuff.
Yeah, we haven't landed his changes yet, but David has been submitted some changes to our client to improve bundling and
I'm guessing this means an engineer on our team has some ideas about ways we could leverage Arc in the future to make validation even better. So, but I'm not 100% sure. That individual engineer had their reasons.
Yep. When should we use Zod? I will say, if you don't know what Zod is, or you're not a Zod user, you just want to use Convex, just use Convex. You're mostly fine. So for people who aren't validator nerds, right? I don't use any additional kind of validators. I just use the regular input validators if I build Convex functions, and it works just fine for me. I think there are folks who like having much more expressive validators, and then people can use something like Zod with Convex, which works great. But if you're kind of confused about what to do here, I would just not use it, and then adopt it if you feel the need.
This is the Europe stuff. Yep, we gave the update.
Already covered. Yep. Sponsorship, C#. Yeah. We there's lots of stuff that we could sponsor. We just started this kind of stuff.
I think that Mike on our team did a little C# version a while ago because he was messing around with Unity and Convex together. So there might be some work already out there that we gotta double back on, because over the last 18 months there's been a lot of cool open source projects that people have done, and we've been like, neat, and then some people use them, but we're not really tracking them. So we'll go back and take a close look at all these.
This is actually a really cool question. We will get more out of the WebSocket connection other than sync, such as channels or ephemeral storage. No plans in the works, but I like this idea. I think this was most relevant when we built AI Town. If some people might remember AI Town, it still exists. It's like a AI world where little agents walk around, and it would have been kind of helpful for us to have like ephemeral game state for like more kind of high throughput kind of use cases. So I can see this being valuable. The reason we haven't done it is anytime we do like a head-to-head with something like live blocks, like where like that's ephemeral and Convex is just storing the state in the database, the Convex just doing it by the database and Convex ends up working and ends up being like cost effective too. So we haven't actually seen too many examples where this is needed.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting idea.
For you all to think about. I mean, one of the ways we've thought about doing this in the past, because I think one of the things that can get awkward is if we start introducing new primitives into the server environment that live next to your tables, you're like, how do I compose all the table query stuff with like these other channel primitives or whatever? So one of the ways we've thought about representing this is, could we just support something like ephemeral tables, right? Where they're just in-memory tables that are really fast, but that way they have the same semantics as the rest of your tables in terms of reactivity and message passing and stuff. And then that way you kind of get maybe the best of both worlds, where you'd be able to have like persistent data and ephemeral data live next to each other and be queried the same way, but you'd get those like performance and cost characteristics of like in-memory data. So just something to think about for all of you out there. If that sounds like a cool idea, come tell us.
Yep. Also, Actions video was great. That was Mickey. By the way, both our DX people are called Mike, so it gets confusing now. We have Mickey and Mikey. There's a great video on Actions. Is it possible to generate client SDK for an API? Yes. You can generate open API bindings, like specs for your actions, and you can search our docs for that. I think we already addressed a Tanstack DB. This is also something we kind of addressed about the EU storage. As far as I know, RGPD is very similar to GDPR. It's it might be the French equivalent or something. And so we already have GDPR compliance. So Convex already has SOC 2 and SOC 2 Type 2 and HIPAA and GDPR. Does not have EU residency. But we may already meet your requirements depending on what is needed. What's Convex endgame, Jamie Turner?
Oh, take over the world, of course. No, I mean, I think that Convex, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening, I would say, with like what's happening with Convex and what's happening with things like the sync engines, people, Tanstack DB. And I think that people are starting to raise their expectations again about how clients and servers should work with each other, which is super cool. I do think that will cause clouds to change pretty fundamentally, and applications, like most of the time you're not going to need things as low level anymore as like an EC2 instance, right? Like most of the time that's too low level, it's too much work, it's too much configuration and coupling, and so Convex's vision that we want to be a part of is that we will all be using really different APIs for making applications in the future. So and Convex is our goal is to remain an independent company and be one of the big providers that's helping make that happen. So developers can get their jobs done and have fun building stuff and not spend as much time fighting databases or config files or queues or whatever else.
Yep. Our competitor is AWS in the long run. That's our desire. I know that sounds very grandiose, right? But the idea, obviously, there's going to be people using AWS independent of Convex, but like I think like a lot of people will just use a higher level abstraction. It's a few things that I saw pop up. HIPAA compliant in the US. Yes, we're HIPAA compliant. You can store healthcare records on Convex. Also, is there will there be an option to migrate data to the EU? Yeah. We haven't built any of that yet, but like, we obviously wouldn't want to have some kind of penalty where you just start using Convex and you can't migrate it later on or anything. Okay. This is a common question about like which auth should I use?
I would recommend if you're just starting a new app, maybe try Better Auth or try WorkOS or Clerk. I think that Convex Auth works, but we're probably not going to be investing very much in the future. So if you want to be part of where all the energy is going, like choosing one of Better Auth, WorkOS, or Clerk is probably a better option at this point than Convex Auth.
Convex Auth works just fine, by the way, and it's reliable and all that kind of stuff. Some projects we're excited to see at Hackathon. I have not looked at the list yet, but Mickey did a great video recently about like hackathons, and in it he said like do something you're personally passionate about. Don't try to game the system. Instead, just do something that has kind of love and passion in it. That's the kind of stuff I'm excited about, because you can tell when someone builds something they personally are excited about. So the team plan will automate our APIs much faster, correct? I want to make sure I understand this question. This means upgrading to a higher level of service will be faster. You'll have more parallelism and you can run higher workloads on.
Yeah, there's the higher plans have stuff like more parallelism. It's probably going to be faster, like Flash backplane instead of EBS backplane, and edge, kind of a global edge network to terminate connections. And so for sure, like your overall performance on the higher plans for various reasons should be both more scalable and faster.
Yep. Good choice for CRM. Yeah, we have a CRM template app out there. We haven't updated in a really long time, so it's probably ancient Convex, but don't we have it? Did we release that,
we
Jamie?
did. I think it, as you said, it's probably due for an update. But Convex is a good, it's a great CRM platform because it's just automatically reactive and it caches the results once they exist. So especially if you use something with server side rendering like Next.js or Tanstack Start, then you could have something. It's kind of a CRM that just feels like a normal developer tool and database without all the ceremony around traditional CRMs. So I think a Convex is a great fit for that.
Yeah. Would you recommend Convex for microfinance? Yeah, looks great. We actually have quite a lot of crypto apps on Convex. What's interesting? When you start out as a company, because we've been at Convex obviously since the beginning. The customers that show up are the customers that are a bit more risk-takey early on. And so a lot of the early customers of Convex were crypto companies doing transactional kind of workloads, because they're just more open to new things, and now we have a lot more kind of boring customers, meaning, more mainstream customers. But early on we had a lot of crypto apps.
And that's when you learn that the crypto apps, 90% of their transaction processing is not on the blockchain, and then they land a small output of everything they do in traditional infra onto the blockchain.
Almost all crypto apps are just stored in a database somewhere, not in the blockchain. Cool. Is it good to use Convex to serve HTML pages? I'm gonna say no, but you can. But I think something like Netlify, Vercel are better to serve your static content. There are people who use Convex for serving websites. There are people who use Hono, for serving as a web server on Convex. You can do it, but I just don't think we're the best hosting provider out there, to be honest. Convex is more the back end, and we suggest you use something like Netlify, Vercel, Cloudflare, etc. GitHub Pages for storing your web content. Also, it's a little bit of pain for me because every now and then someone tries to use Convex to serve bad material, and then I have to deal with it. It's bane of my existence. What do we think about web containers? Were there any pain points identified? Yeah, it's a more limited environment. You have to it's not just the same as using Node. Like it's yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge, to be honest. But we benefited tremendously from Vault's open source code. So I mean, like Chef wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for it. I will say that web containers does require licensing to be able to use. And so you should just be careful about deploying a production application using web containers if you haven't gone and figured out the licensing side of things. How to deploy front end with Next.js and backend in Convex to AWS EC2. Oh, this is like a self-hosting question, probably. Most people don't do this. Most people have their front end Netlify, Vercel, and the back end on Convex. There's the quick start for Next.js will just work just fine. But if you want to do it yourself, you can, and you can look at the README for our self-hosting guide. I'd recommend you not do that if you're just getting started, because it's just adding one more variable you have to worry about. And you can get started on Convex for free. I'm not saying that because I want to upsell you to Convex. Of course, I do want to make money off our customers. But at the end of the day, like if you don't want to pay, that's cool. Use the open source thing. I just think it's more work.
Yeah,
The whole point of
and if you're
Convex,
gonna self-host, I would use like there's a good Railway template now or something like that. Like I still think AWS is too low level. I mean, who wants to deal with all that? So unless you already have an AWS account and you're already in there and you love VPCs and your Terraform is set up, and like if you're all in on AWS and Convex is augmenting something you already have running, fine. But if you're just like, well, I want to run this myself and I don't have anything set up yet, AWS is just overkill, to be honest. There are easier ways to run containers these days and run a database than AWS.
Yeah. Great question from this person called Raz Mike. You heard of him
Yeah,
before, Jamie?
occasionally.
Yeah.
Is Convex just a database? I watched a video earlier today that on our YouTube channel that instructed me that Convex is more than just a database. So I think I confidently answer Convex is your whole backend, not just database.
This is a pretty low-level question about if we use Postgres 18 with self-hosted. Convex self-hosted is designed to work with like any database. Well, it works with SQLite, MySQL, and Postgres. So it doesn't actually use anything particularly sophisticated under the covers. So I doubt it uses any new features. But it's been a while since I've looked at that code. Let's see, I'm just scrolling through. What kind of load is the biggest customer running on Convex today?
Yeah,
I mean, say, Jamie?
tens of thousands of concurrent users, hundreds of thousands of daily active users, and thousands, many thousands of queries per second, that ballpark. So if you've got millions of daily active users, probably talk to us. And we do have some customers now that do have millions of daily active users. They're just onboarding onto the system. But in terms of who is running already on Convex, it's more in the kind of like hundreds of thousands of daily active users kind of range.
Yeah. Every now and then, but because I'm looking at graphs all day and stuff, and I don't look at what customers' applications are doing, but I do see load spikes and things. And every now and then I got to email a customer and be like, hey, you're running 25,000 queries mutations per second. Do you mean to be doing that? And sometimes people have written like an infinite loop or something. And yeah, the system works just fine on those kind of workloads. That's a lot of load, right? But like the issues people run into. Let's go to this next question here. What are the challenges big customers have with Convex?
What are the challenges big customers? Go ahead.
I've got two. Well, I've got many. Let's just keep listing them. Okay. One is our very, very largest customers are finding that code sync time is slow. Now that means like 45 seconds. It doesn't mean like 5 minutes, right? But like for our largest customers, sometimes they just like to push to Convex takes a bit of time, and we're actively working on reducing that. That's what David Blast was helping with, and that's what we're doing. We're going to use a separate compilation of components to speed that up. So one problem is just like the editing loop.
That's very
gets
true.
slow.
Yep, agree with that.
One is sometimes people write like high contention workloads where you have all these customers kind of updating the same row at the same time. And that won't work on any database, but it also won't work on Convex, right? So one challenge with Convex is we do make things seem sometimes a bit magic and like they just work, but you do have to ultimately design apps in ways that scale. We try to codify that in our APIs, but you could write an application that didn't scale on Convex if everyone was just writing to the same row at the same time. It's just not going to scale in any database.
Yeah, and this is a little in the weeds, but to that second point, like James mentioned earlier, this like retry, suspend, like server-side suspend support and stuff like that. One of the ways we help customers scaling like use Convex in ways that will scale automatically is via components, things like the work pool component, stuff like that. But the problem we have is it's even hard to write the work pool component in a way right now that doesn't have any contention, and it's because we are missing kind of this like reactive primitive in Convex that lets you write really efficient non-contending code. So yeah, in the direction there is like we definitely need to like introduce this primitive so that we can speed up like algorithms that avoid contention, and then a lot of that though is about making all of the Convex components extremely efficient, and then getting as many of our bigger customers as we can to just use those components that automatically solve the algorithm like a non-contending way, in a way that will scale.
Yep. But the number one issue the very biggest customers run into is scheduler backlog. If you're one of our biggest customers watching the stream, you might be familiar with you. And this is typically what happens. We know some customers might have WebSockets or external integrations when all of a sudden like hundreds of thousands of requests come in, and all these scheduled jobs get spun up to do some background processing. And that can mean that there's a limited concurrency. There's a limited number of things you can run at the same time on the same data. And so those schedulers can fall behind. And the solution is that it should be using the work pool that allows you to control this scheduling. But our work pool could be a little bit better, could be a bit more efficient. And that's the thing Jamie's referring to. Do you think we'll see a meta framework tile integrated with Convex?
Yeah, I mean, possibly, yes, that would be great. There's a good chance the first one we would do is maybe Tanstack Start, just because we work so closely with those folks. And Tanner and everybody on that side is been super committed to helping Tanstack Start run as well as possible with Convex. So we could do it at some point. I don't think it's going to happen in 2025. Maybe we'll have time to look at something like this in 2026.
Yep. When is Better Auth coming out of alpha?
It's out of alpha. It's yeah.
Oh, there we go.
It's very close to 1.0.
It's
very close to 1.0. So go try it. We expect it to work now. So give it a shot. It should be a good experience.
Yep. Okay. Do we use any AI IDEs when working on Convex? Yeah. Let's talk about how we develop stuff here. I don't write that much code these days, to be honest. But if I do, I typically just use Cursor. Now, a lot of our engineers have actually switched to using Z and Claude Code. And there are people, we use Devon sometimes as well. Like it's kind of like, as long as the build's not getting too high, I'm fine with people using whatever. I will say almost all the interesting stuff at Convex is built by human beings, because LLMs are just not capable of doing work at that level right now. Right now, we use a ton for adding features, improving features on the dashboard and stuff like that. But like in terms of stuff like designing our API or changing how we implement the commit protocol, people often find it easier just to turn off the LLM and write it by hand, and because I think sometimes their brain is competing with the LLM. And if you have this voice just giving you a bunch of dumb suggestions, sometimes you're better off just using your brain.
Yep.
So we use all the stuff that you would expect here, but you'd probably be surprised that almost all of it, like we're not in the world where like AI is writing Convex. Like most of it, you have to be written by a human being with experience.
The team's pretty good at this point on like this is the kind of task I could set Codex loose on, or in Devon loose on, or something, Cloud Code. But the core of the system, if the consequences of getting it wrong are disastrous, as you all could probably imagine, right? So most of that stuff is still like largely written by hand, where probably most of what the LMs are doing, if they're doing anything, is just kind of like smart autocomplete type stuff, like in Cursor.
Yeah, and it can start slowing you down sometimes as well. But yeah, is the component SDK ready? No, it's not. But you could just cheat and do it anyway, because you can write components right now. You can just copy and paste another component and just use that as an example. But we have a lot of ergonomic improvements coming out in the next month. Client-side ID allocation ultimately up is going to get better. Yes. So for example, one thing we have to fix that we just haven't got around to yet is db.get, db.patch, and db.delete. These all just take an ID by itself. They don't take table name ID, right? So this is like maybe a mistake in our API, because LLMs get confused by this too. Most of our operations, you give it the table name and then you give it the operation. These three commands, you just give it the ID, and the system just figures out the table from the ID. Now, the reason it does that, the way it does that is our IDs actually embed a table number inside them. You can't see this because it's kind of like, hidden inside the ID. But the IDs are generated server side, and they are self-describing. So we can look at an ID and figure out what table it's in. Now, if you're doing client-side ID allocation, like you're creating an optimistic update and you want to make your own ID, it's very difficult, almost impossible, to safely make self-describing IDs. It's very, very difficult to be able to look at the ID and know what table it's in. So what we're going to do is just require you to specify the table. So we're going to push out a change sometime where you have to actually say the table if you're using client-side IDs. And then once we do that, we can improve optimistic updates. Okay. Edge QL's declarative power is a strong draw. Plans for Convex to introduce similar high-level type-safe query language to streamline complex operations by. Okay, so this is about query planning, really, right? And we can't. I'm not sure if Jamie's face is cut off by this question here in the stream.
Might be.
Convex, Convex is an imperative kind of way of specifying queries. You just say, read from this index or whatever. Jamie and I personally like that style. I think for OLTP, for like transactional workloads, that is the most convenient, reliable way to express queries. It is not a good format for specifying analytics queries at all. And so we do not currently have plans to have declarative query language for Convex. We could. And if we did, what we would do is basically, what my suggestion for what we would do is to have a static query planner. So you would basically know something about your table and take that declarative language, compile it down to Convex's current syntax for queries and mutations, and run that. But it is not actively getting worked on. Tom, Ian, and Mike all deserve raises. I agree. They're awesome. We value them, and yeah, we'll sort that out. Any thoughts on XState?
Yeah, I mean, I think we chatted about this in a previous AMA too, but yeah, I mean, the XState project is really cool. I think there are, for those that don't know, XState is like a way to represent, a kind of first-class way to represent state machines that can then map itself to different computing environments and stuff like that. And Convex is, because of its like deterministic state graph, is obviously kind of a great potential coupling for XState. And developers in the past have written connectors between XState and Convex. And it's kind of been like, and they've shared it like on our Discord. We've been like, whoa, that's really cool. I don't know if we're personally going to do anything specific with XState in the near future. It might be something that maybe Mike Can or somebody on the video side plays around with at some point. But yeah, we don't have any specific plans to like do anything. I think the biggest thing we react to is you all want something to happen. And so if everyone came to us and was like, we're all building our application with XState now, then that's the kind of energy we need to know to invest in it. Otherwise, we're happy to answer questions and watch what you all do with it. But not sure there's anything our team needs to do here.
Question about links. You know what? Every now and then someone asks a question, and I have to confess I have no experience with it, and maybe that looks really dumb, but we just don't have experience with everything. I don't have links experience, unfortunately.
I don't know what links is, to be honest. Yeah. So sorry.
Yeah, so we have to be honest. I'm sure there's someone in our team who's like rolling their eyes so hard right now because they know all about it, but not us. Jake, I think this question got cut off, but working on something called Zodvex. Awesome. Thank you for contributing to Convex. And the question is like, we have Convex helpers. Should this be like a one-stop shop? Like if you build something for Convex, should it get integrated in the helpers, or how do you contribute back? I don't like how sprawling Convex helpers is getting. What I'd like to do is disaggregate that sometime and have like a Convex standard library of like very core things that we provide. And that would be like the work pool and a few very core things. And then everything else should be the ecosystem. So I would recommend just hosting it as your own NPM package if you can, or your own library if you can. Yeah. Can Convex Validator be used as AI SDK?
I mean, short answer there is check out the agents component, and everything we're doing with the relationship between Convex types and AI SDK is really encapsulated in the work Ian is doing with the agents component right now. So, and that's a fast moving target because he updates it every 2 days. So I don't know. Go join the agents channel in Discord and check out the agents component.
Yep.
They were the best answers for that.
Similar to this question too. Yeah, with the one caveat that I think we should add streaming HTTP action sometime. But yeah, the agent component handles a lot of this. Updates on OLAP. When can we expect OLAP?
So you all look, everyone keeps asking about European storage, and I get it, right? So realistically, I think at this point, it's safe to say that OLAP is probably prioritized behind European storage, right? And so like, we would love to have it. We know how useful it's going to be for people. I think once people see it, it's going to complete a lot of pictures on how to solve problems with Convex, and I can't wait to write the docs for it actually. And like, but we're having to really brutally prioritize right now. And so, we've got the database stability stuff that we're locking down now. And then we're probably gonna have to focus on European storage first before we really deliver OLAP. So that's my predictions, probably a couple months out still because of that need to prioritize.
Yeah. For the infra nerds out there, we kind of have an interesting idea for how to make some changes to how we store data in Convex. And that would involve moving. So Convex is like a log structured storage system internally. We have a lot of like historical versions of your state. The idea would be to move non-latest versions into like a columnar format, like a separate format on S3 internally. And if we did that, we could point this regular analytics databases directly at that. So you could use Databricks or Snowflake or whatever to query your Convex state directly. It'd be pretty nice.
Can we do that one on incentivizing component builders? I would love to answer that real quick.
Oh,
it's at the top here, at least in my view.
Incentivize component.
Yes. So we have the component directory, and right now everything in the component directory, almost everything, I think maybe one or two things in there we didn't write, but like they all were stuff we wrote. And it's because we know when we release components, we need to prove the framework. And so we were going to build all the early ones and learn what works and doesn't work and have some good models for how to do it. In the future, I would love for the majority of things in the component directory to be written not by us and have the author and attribution, all that kind of stuff. But where I would really love to go with it is do some kind of revenue sharing thing at some point, right? So like if you build an amazing component that like, let's say you have a new payment solution that's built completely in Convex, and like its API is, you know, a component API, and it keeps all of its state in a Convex component or whatever. Like, if people are installing that, I would love to have some kind of marketplace support to be able to like let you monetize a component that you've created that's providing value both to Convex the company, but also to Convex customers. So that's not something we're going to have ready in the next 6 months, but like sometime in maybe late 2026 or something, like I would be love to have time to start to work on that.
Yeah. So we're at time. We'll go over. I got. Do you have a meeting
No,
on
we
right
can
now,
go
Jamie?
another 10 minutes or so, I think.
Yeah. So now we're in random picking questions mode. So apologies if we missed anyone's question. We'll try to answer everything and not be like cagey and hide anything. But if we don't get to your question, please bring it next time, and you can pre-register them too. So I like this question because it's pretty deep, right? Why do we use Nomad over Kubernetes for Convex? So deep down inside Convex, you don't need to know about this, but like how we run our infrastructure, we use Nomad for container management. Why not Kubernetes? Well, I think that Kubernetes kind of sucks. Oh, well,
I mean, no,
that's
to
too
be
harsh.
honest,
Kubernetes is hard, very hard to
I think
use.
I used to think it was just me, and then it's James and me, and we're like, oh, we're forcing our team to use this stuff because we're quirky or whatever. Nope, our team hates Kubernetes too. Like, honestly, nobody really on the infra side loves Kubernetes here. It's just a complicated, configuration heavy, brittle thing, and I don't love it. So for those of you that are fans of everything HashiCorp did, like HashiCorp, I think always had a really very nice aesthetic sense of like making infra tools with pretty good ergonomics. And I think Nomad has its warts, but I think it's much better designed than Kubernetes. So
Yeah.
we're hoping we can stay on Nomad as long as possible, even though we know most of the world is using Kubernetes now.
Yeah. Kubernetes is more sophisticated, more popular, bigger, and it's a bit of a risky choice to be on Nomad, I suppose. If you want to, if to the question why Convex, I mean, go try using Kubernetes for a while, and then be like, do I want to keep doing this every day? And then you can use Convex and never think about that ever again. Someone's audio and video aren't in sync.
Is it, if you want to say more, because I know you've mentioned it twice, is it mine or James's or both of us? Like top guy, bottom guy, everyone. Kind of curious, and if anyone else is seeing that, let me know.
Yeah. Let me say, this is a very important question. I can't say which is harder, but who acts more stressed on a day-to-day basis, Jamie?
I think honestly it's very difficult to decide that, because a lot of the make the company work stuff is on me all the time, but also to, I think, James, as the system scales up and customers show up and stuff like, I mean, the truth is I don't really get woken up in the middle of the night that much and stuff like that. And a lot of the buck stops here on the system working well is stuff that James and the engineering team owns. So I think both jobs are just are tough right now. So, but then again, we love it, so I don't want to complain too much, but they're not easy jobs.
Yeah. Jamie hides the stress better than me.
It's my job to hide the stress. project confidence.
I'm deep down, I'm an infra guy, and infra people are stressed all the time. I don't know why. We have psychological problems. Can Convex React Client use, Jamie, didn't you write a solution for this?
Can it use cache memory? Yeah, it can. In Convex helpers, there's a cache helper that automatically keeps around subscriptions so that you always have up-to-date values even after the component temporarily uploads or unloads or anything. So you can either switch to using React Query and all of their automatic caching stuff. But if you just want to stay on the simpler like Convex libraries and you're not in the Tanstack ecosystem yet, you can use from Convex helpers. There's a little utility that does this for you.
Yep. That's a nice question from Thomas. Why is count an expensive operation? Yeah, by the way, a lot of folks have said my audio is messed up.
It's weird because at least where I'm at, your audio looks fine. So I'm not sure what's going on with
fine.
What is this platform we're using? Re something.
Restream. Yeah. Internet doesn't like me. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so aggregates. So this relates to the declarative query thing, right? Databases like Postgres and MySQL sometimes make things look efficient when they are not efficient, right? And typically now, so traditional relational databases store table summary information, which is approximate and not exact, and you can efficiently look this up. But if you want to say look up like the sum of all the rows in your database in a large table, it's just going to fail, right? Because the way you do this is you literally read every single row and add it up. So there's ways. I mean, the example I always give is if you select random from a table, it will literally copy the entire table in memory for you and pick a random row. So aggregates are just not cheap. Because if you, now this is the kind of thing analytics databases are built for, right? That's why they even, like, why do analytics databases even exist?
That's a good way to
Right?
put it. Yeah.
Why does someone invent Databricks and Snowflake and all that kind of stuff if we already have MySQL and Postgres? Because these things suck at aggregates, right? And that's why Google did MapReduce, right? All that kind of stuff. So if you want to do an aggregate, that's what analyst databases are for. And they go and spin up all these parallel threads that do big range scans very efficiently with large page sizes, and they're designed for efficient aggregates. But transactional databases are very bad at this because you have to read every row.
The like technical answer, which is kind of interesting, and it's not that long of a description, but it's kind of fascinating, right? Is it application databases are incentivized to be as fast as possible, right? So they keep track of nothing extra that they don't have to. And so in particular, the B tree that holds an index doesn't keep account of how many children that are in all of its or like how many children it has in its all of its subtrees, right? So if you imagine with a kind of tree, if you added a child deep in the subtree, you would have to, almost like a Merkle tree, you'd have to scan your way back up every parent after that and increment their count by 1. And that's the way you would be able to know, like in constant time, how many children were in the entire index, right? Or even within a range of the index. So when you say count star, where X is whatever, you might be using an index to find the start of the range, but then the SQL database just has to start walking the range and checking all the fields. There's no magical thing a SQL database does. So Convex makes expensive things look expensive. And so I think there are sometimes operations that people think are really fast SQL databases, but they're really not. They're doing the same thing that Convex does here. That the aggregate component itself is actually, one of our engineers went in and built a version of a B tree that does keep track of the counts of all of its siblings. And so it's a new kind of data structure that does this stuff efficiently. You just have to do a little more work to use it. But like James said, the way I think most people, when they just want a quick aggregate, once we have support for like the DuckDB OLAP, just use that, because columnar databases are really good at scanning fields. Like they're really good at table scans. That's the right solution.
Vincent from Denmark, hi Vincent, says Convex is slow. This is very interesting because it should not be. It should absolutely not take a second for your state to show up. So if it does, there's something wrong, and I'm kind of curious what it is.
If you're on a pro plan, definitely like file a ticket just so we can check. But yeah, I mean, Convex is pretty sensitive to network right now, and so if we don't have European data locality right now, it's going to have to round trip the United States. 1 second still sounds way too long based on other experiences of customers in Europe, but like there's various kinds of network tests and things we can do. But some of those like upper tier plans that have stuff like edge termination for SSL and stuff like that, some of those can kind of help a bit, but yeah, we definitely are dependent on networks being fast. The actual Convex part in the back end normally takes less than 10 milliseconds to do this operation. So the rest of it's just network propagation time.
I'm on low power mode, so I'm going to find a charger while I'm
Maybe
talking. But we'll
wrap
up.
One more question or something.
Let's do 2 questions and then we'll wrap up because I've got these 2 I want to say. Can you deploy to GovCloud? Jamie, that's a good question for you to answer.
Probably not, to be frank. Like, yeah, we're familiar with that process from previous companies and all the certification that's necessary. Obviously, if you were self-hosting it on ECS, I suppose there's a kind of independent assessment you could do about like FedRAMP and stuff like that. Like if the way you're using Convex is compliant, that's great. But we have not done any work at all on our end to think through like FedRAMP compliance or anything. So
Yeah.
I can't safely tell you it's okay to do. You would have to get your lawyers involved and your CISO or whatever and dive into it.
Yeah. FedRAMP's a lot of work. And the last one I was going to respond was about how do we evaluate new hires, because it might be interesting. So it's hard. Now, Jamie and I've interviewed in my life at least 1,000 people, maybe 2,000 people. That's just from years of doing this every day. And over time, you kind of get better at figuring out whether someone's going to be a good fit for the team. And because team fit's so critical. I mean, the most important thing for a company is the people you have here, right? And so, we do the typical interview kind of stuff, like, a phone, we have a chat first and we do a phone screen, then we do like an on-site where we do coding questions, a couple of coding questions. I typically do an architecture question, to like design question, and a deep dive on a previous system you've built. And what I'm really looking for is, like, do you understand the why? Do you understand, like, the broader perspective around your work? Because I feel like people who really, everyone should just, this is no judgment of people and their engineering proclivities, right? But there's folks who want to be told, hey, do this thing, and they write the code and they submit it, and that's the end. And it ends at the PR. And there's people who deeply care about why they're getting asked to do a problem, what the person really wanted, what are the business cases, what are the trade-offs, all that kind of stuff. And I find that people who really deeply engage in the why make very good engineers for a company like Convex, because we're trying to do something new, and it requires people who are into thinking big picture. Maybe we should wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Before we do that, someone said nice office, so why don't I just give you a little tour, and we can wave at the team having lunch here. Hey everyone. Yeah. Cool. Thanks everyone. Appreciate y'all. And we'll do another stream sometime soon. If we didn't get to your question, apologies. And we'll get to it next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.